Okay, hello, welcome everybody to July 2020 and this month's Geodesignhub webinar. I'm going to start recording and we'll keep some questions for later. Um, Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about geodesign, and I know this is a webinar on the internet, so really we get a lot of people who have no experience with geodesign. So I keep it broad and general, but we can go into very specific things as well. So with that said, let's begin. The first thing I should tell you is that geodesign deals with the future. It necessarily deals with something that has not happened yet. And what it provides is basically a way to think about the future of a place. In the context of geography, it's more about how do you engage with different people who have different opinions and visions of the future. And most importantly, how do you handle the conflicts and disagreements that inevitably happen when you are dealing with these kind of problems. And so these problems look like the following. These are a series of newspaper clippings that I thought might be useful to illustrate some of the issues that Geodesignhub and Geodesign deals with. It is things like environmental management, it is things like infrastructure investment, it is post-disaster recovery, public engagement, policy analysis, and so on. So these things deal with different people trying to get together to move the conversation forward for these topics. And the fundamental thing that is interesting about geodesign is this sort of acceptance that one person or a group of people don't know or cannot know how the future will look like. And so there is a sort of an acceptance that we have to work on this together. So this notion of collaboration and working together forms the basis of geodesign. As far as Geodesignhub is concerned, basically it is a software to enable geodesign negotiations. It is open and a cloud-based system. It is easy to learn and understand. I can sort of teach you in less than an hour. And it is used in the context of facilitation of negotiations and project management. And because it's done digitally, you can do things like financial analysis, policy analysis, recommendations, and so on. Normally, you use a tool like Geodesignhub when you have a site or a project that is contested. You have a site that has conflicting politics in that you have right versus left, or the capitalist versus socialist, these sort of buckets that we tend to put each other in. And you have an acceptance that there is a need for a negotiated settlement or some sort of a negotiation. And because we do it digitally, you do basically digital negotiations. And by that, it's automatically a hard problem to solve. So if you have a good idea of what needs to happen, if you have already plans in place and sort of an idea of how you want to move forward, then Geodesignhub is not a good solution. Now, these sites normally look like a single or a multi-issue dispute. So basically, it could be the problem is the lake or the future of the lake, or it could be the lake and the road, for example. These are multi-issue disputes. It could be two or multi-party conflicts. So the transport company does not like the shopkeepers, and the shopkeepers does not like, for example, the residents, and the residents don't like either of them. And so this is sort of a multi-issue dispute or a multi-party dispute. In many cases, it is not as confrontational. Sometimes the parties are willing to work together, but they are stuck. They don't know how to move forward. In these kinds of problems, you should consider using Geodesignhub. In many cases, we use it as a preventive intervention sort of a thing where before things escalate or get out of control, we use this to sort of enable some of these negotiations. We have an entire PDF that I can share with you later of different projects that we have done across the world. And there are case studies and sort of some of the tools used and the outcomes and so on. There are really four things that Geodesignhub offers that is interesting. The first one is this notion of collaboration. You have 20, 30, 40 people working together at the same time, kind of like you would in Google Docs, for example, in a coordinated way. And because you're doing it digitally, then there is a record of the digital process that people are doing. As a part of this exercise, you're going to walk them through a geodesign process, and at the other side, you get coordination and consensus development between the participants. Routinely, we get up to 90% agreement on very contentious issues, and this is from surveys and sort of interviews afterwards. And because it's also done digitally, we have a very elaborate suite of project management tools, specifically financial analysis, spatial analysis, and so on, visualization, and so on, that sort of comes as a post event to ensure that whatever is negotiated is well thought out and structured and implemented. So the company really offers three things: software itself, geodesignhub.com. We also run a site called geoforage.io that sort of works in combination with geodesign. And then we offer support, and of course there is a community as well. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about these three things. Normally, people use Geodesign Hub to basically have enhance the management and the analysis capability within your organization. In many cases, it is used as a public engagement function. Sometimes, you have a problem and you want to get people on the same page. So it is used as a sort of a method and a technology strategy to enable consensus amongst your stakeholders. And this is what these meetings look like in person. Some pictures, a group of people with a computer and starting to discuss these issues. These are from different departments, divisions, citizens, and so on, and it is projected. And we've done this in all sorts of contexts and in all sorts of locations. And given this COVID situation that we all are in, we also enable online, sort of fully online work from your home or office geodesign projects as well. So this is from a workshop recently where basically there's me and sort of the colleagues joining from the different locations. And we have done these kind of projects in person and online across the world. This is a bit dated map, but if you see a dot sort of in the country or near a country or place where you are, just reach out and I can introduce you to somebody who you can talk to as well in detail. Now, the company offers a full spectrum of support. So from basically, let's say, a comprehensive support where you have no experience with geodesign to basically a community level support if you are well experienced with it. So it sort of depends on where your organization is and what you're trying to do. I want to elaborate a little bit about the 5 or 6 steps that we take to sort of come to a geodesign project, the question of how do I get started? And so we have this 5-step framework that we generally use when we are trying to discuss geodesign. So the first step is you reach out to me, or we have a discussion, we meet somewhere, and you need to have a problem and the kind of issue that you're trying to solve. And this leads to this first step of, is Geodesign Hub the right project, the right tool for what you're trying to do? If you're trying to do GIS work, if you're trying to do spatial analysis, if you already know what needs to happen, then these are the kind of things that we need to discuss, and maybe Geodesign Hub is not the right tool. Now, this is kind of like a triage step, and if we have agreed that Geodesign Hub is something that is interesting, we then move to the next step, which is basically the data collection phase. If you have data already, of course, we can use that. We can create new data, do surveys, and so on. And then there's also an organization, like an event management phase, where you have to organize these meetings. Then once we have organized these meetings, so for example, you can conduct 2 or 3 meetings online, live, then we have these negotiations about the future. Obviously, you have to invite these people and get them in, get this meeting in the calendar and so on. And we sort of help you with the invitation preparation, the text, and so on as well. Then once the negotiations have happened and the meetings are done, then there is a post-workshop phase, basically where we help in sort of the report writing, project management, some further analysis as necessary, really, for the project. So this is what it looks like in 4 steps. Once you have agreed that this is something that we need to do, we do surveys in the area, leads to workshops or meetings where the outcomes are negotiated, and then we do the analysis and the management piece as well. And essentially, because you do it all digitally, you get all the benefit of digitalization, which is very fast spatial analysis, cloud computing, version control, and so on. And so normally negotiations generally happen anyways. You have to negotiate when you are working with a complex problem. But because you're doing it digitally with a new tool and a new method, the outcomes are different. In traditional negotiation, the power structures are sort of reflect the outcomes. But now that you're using a new method and a technology, your outcomes are very, very different. I just wanted to show you quickly how Geodesignhub looks like, just a case study basically. And this is in the island of Sardinia in Italy. So I'm in Geodesignhub. You can see this. You can see some maps. This is the island of Cagliari, Sardinia in Cagliari, and this is data that was generated from outside Geodesignhub. We have a problem which we have separated into 10 things: cultural heritage, ecology, hazard, tourism, commerce industry, agriculture, high and low density housing, transport, and smart growth. And these are data that are done outside. So this was the maps done in QGIS or ArcGIS or whatever else that you may have. And basically you have this sort of a data preparation phase. And then you have participants. In this case, we have about 60, 70 participants coming in and drawing simple diagrams. And you can sort of add the data and have these layers and so on in there. Once they are sort of done drawing these diagrams, and this happens in these meetings and workshops, you are then asked to pick and select from these different set of things. So I can select, and this is my scheme. And in this case, we have three teams, basically a developer team, an environmental team, and a government team. And essentially they are picking from the same set. And then we walk them through a series of negotiation where they agree to one outcome. And this is what it really looks like conceptually: different systems, some assessments, simple diagrams drawn and then synthesized across these cycles, leading to a consensus design. I'm not going to go into the negotiation tools because that will take a little bit longer, but basically what they're doing is sort of negotiating to come to a solution, or let's say two solutions. Some pictures basically from these workshops: 6 teams in this case: culture, history, tourism, developers, metropolitan government, regional government, and Greens. And then they are doing these negotiations. And obviously now, because of the COVID situation, we do it all online. There is a very extensive plugins ecosystem. So all the financial analysis and visualizations that I talk about is available for you with the Geodesign project. Basically, it can be customized to your specific use case and needs, which is very interesting from a financial analysis point of view and so on. So we can do all of that, or you can use your own models and tools if they have you have them available. And essentially also this sort of a project management piece of Gantt charts and resources and finances and so on. Now, the question of the costing. So the first thing I should mention to you is that Geodesignhub is free for academic use, humanitarian use, and so on. And we offer huge discounts for just research projects and so on. For commercial projects, it normally, the first decision you have to make is how long do you want this thing for? And all data can be taken out as necessary in OGC format, so you can use the other tools and so on. So normally people do it between 2 to 6 months that they want to run a project. This includes all the 4 steps that I mentioned. And basically the cost, depending on what you're trying to do, if you want the full support and it's a commercial work, we're looking at about 8 to 10,000. But honestly, for research project and academic projects, or projects where some of the work is done by your side, it can be sort of quite less as well. So it's hard for me to give you pricing, but Geodesignhub itself is 800 euros per project per month. And then depending on how much or how little you want us to do, some of that pricing increases. Interestingly, we offer training as well. There is a course essentially and certification as well, so you can take that. I would really recommend, if you have staff or are yourself interested in learning about geodesign and sort of the specific way of arranging and organizing digital negotiations, maybe as your professional sort of certification, or sort of a way for you to move on in your career. It's a great way to just learn new things and sort of away from the GIS analysis and so on. And so there is a certification, there is a course that I would really recommend you to take. This is the course, and there is a community site where you can introduce yourself to it. And of course, we conduct these webinars regularly, and also are at sort of major conferences, and universities and so on. So just some pictures for you to just take a look at, some diagrams, comparing designs. My name is Rishi. I founded Geodesignhub in 2016 after graduating from UCL in London. I'm a mechanical engineer. My background is in mechanical engineering, and I have graduated from MIT and the University of Michigan. And we have been going, running Geodesign, building it for 4.5 years now, 4 years almost. And just have experience in about 120 to 130 geodesign projects, which I have led and worked on. Thank you very much. That is my presentation.